healthcare yet again, because I've actually had an operation 2 days ago, and I wanted to just update you on how that went and all the procedures running up to it. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. You're watching Cyprus Unfiltered, where I'm telling you real stories about real Cyprus. Now, look, my operation was 2 days ago, and at the moment I'm quite swollen here. I probably hear it in my voice. I'm not talking very well. In fact, actually, if I'm honest, I I joke, but I reminded myself of a Quagmire from Family Guy, and I just keep getting giggity giggity in my head. But because I can't close my mouth properly and my cheek is swollen inside, it's not as bad as the picture. The picture was just, let's be honest, it was just clickbait, right? But this has gone down today, or this evening has gone down quite a bit after steroids and everything else. But I can't close my teeth because my cheek is getting stuck between my teeth. So I'm speaking like this guy. I feel like I'm speaking like Jar Jar Binks from Star Wars, but anyway, it is what it is. I still wanted to do the video, and I still wanted to come to you guys tonight live. So that's why I sound like I do. But anyway, I'm not going to go through all of the detail of what's got me to this point. There was a video that I did on that previously about Cyprus healthcare, and I'm going to link to it at the end of this video, and you can go back and watch it if you haven't seen it, if this is the first one you're seeing. But just a real quick recap. So I ended up with having quite a lot of facial numbness down this side of my face, and hospitals out here did a lot of investigations. I've had CT scan, I've had X-rays, 2 MRI scans, and the last MRI scan, it was a more powerful 3 Tesla MRI scan, and they found 2 lumps in my face here. And so I got referred to this maxillofacial specialist. Oh, I can't speak. Maxillofacial specialist. My God, I make myself laugh, and it hurts. It hurts when I laugh. But anyway, uh, basically, he's a plastic surgeon, and so the plastic surgeon is. Sorry, this is very laggy. Oh wow, this is very laggy. I'm seeing things happening over here. Anyway, right. So basically, a plastic surgeon, and when I'd originally booked in to perform this exam, and they were going to do a biopsy, they said, right, we're going to do a tooth extraction of the wisdom tooth, and then while we're there, we're going to just have a look around, and we can do the biopsy from there. But originally, they'd said that they were going to have to do what was the same procedure as a facelift, where they're going to cut me open here, kind of fold everything back, and take the muscle up, then do the biopsy and stitch me all back up. But luckily, because they'd done further investigation, they said actually they don't need to do it from the outside. They don't need to mess this up. They can just go in from the inside. Made it sound really simple. The plan was going to be just literally remove the tooth, have a look inside, and then take a biopsy and just have a look around. Easy, done. So what actually happened, and why do I look and sound like this? Well, I'm going to get to that. But before that, I want to just share with you the whole story about the Cypriot hospitals and what to expect, because now I've actually had an operation in a Cypriot hospital. I thought people watching this, people that might be thinking about living in Cyprus, may want to hear it. So I ended up going to the Iasis private hospital here in Paphos. And I could have gone through GESY. And to be fair, I'd actually got some GESY work signed off. All of my scans and everything were done through GESY. But when the last MRI scan came back, it actually said urgent, and it was down. It was listed as urgent. You need to go and get it all checked out, get the biopsy done ASAP. And as soon as I heard the word cancer, I paid for speed. You know, the fact that even though it was a small risk, the fact that it could have been cancer, it wasn't, by the way, but the fact that it could have been, I was just like, I just need to know. So I just paid for speed. So all of my scans were done through GESY, through it's like the NHS. If you're in the UK, it's the the private health, not private, it's the national healthcare. Oh, sorry, it's national healthcare. But I ended up paying private, which is why I went to this Iasis private hospital. Now, the process was a little bit weird. I'm going to be honest. The first time I went to see this doctor, this maxillofacial specialist, I can't say that like this. We actually met in the Iasis hospital, but he took me to the what was the staff canteen. And again, I mentioned that in another video in the previous video. The first time was in the canteen. Second time was actually in his office, and then the third time that was go time. That was 2 days ago on Friday. So anyway, we get to Friday, and well, actually prior to Friday, there's phone calls and stuff like that, making sure that you're still coming in and making sure that you're happy to pay the money and everything like that. You know, because I'm paying privately at this point. But when I arrived, there was a couple of people waiting outside the office, and there was this guy in a tracksuit, and honestly, I just thought he was a patient because he looked like he'd had some work done, let's be honest, not being nasty to the guy, but he looked like he'd had some work done. He didn't, he looked plastic, he'd clearly got facial work done. So I just assumed he was a patient because pretty much everybody outside the doctor's office said he's a plastic surgeon, was just waiting. Anyway, he said hello. I just thought he'd been friendly. I said hello back. And he's like, "Hey, what's your name?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm Mark." So he's like, "Oh, okay, cool. Pleased to meet you." And he was very pleased to see me. And then he was like, turns out he was working there and he wanted to take my details and everything else. Well, oh, okay. So he works for the doctor. He's part of the hospital. You would not know from looking at him. Like in the UK, everybody's in their overalls or whatever, the scrubs, whatever they're called. Out here, it just looked like a patient. It literally just looked like he was a patient in a tracksuit. That was it. So anyway, he took all my details down, made me sign all these papers, signing the disclaimer forms, basically saying, oh, sorry, basically saying if it all goes wrong, it's not their fault. Basically saying if it doesn't fix the problem, it's not their fault. It's like all these things anyway. And then they take the payment. And it's quite interesting because the whole procedure was like 800 euros. And again, I just want to tell you guys how it is. The whole procedure was 800 euros for this wisdom tooth removal and then the investigation and the biopsy and everything else. You pay an initial 400 up front for a deposit. And in fact, they give you this nice little folder to come away with you. And I'll just show you the paperwork because this is all unfiltered. So the first one, got a receipt there for 400 euros, and that was the deposit paid. And then on the day, I had to pay another 400 euros, which is the balance. But then they also told me I had to pay for the hospital cost as well. I had to pay 200 euros for the Iasis cost, whatever that meant. I don't know if it's like because I used their theatre room or what. So anyway, they rang me up and they just said to me, "Am I okay to pay that?" I said, "Yeah." They told me that at the initial consultation. What I don't understand though is that when I got there and then I actually had to pay the 200 euros, they only charged me 100 euros. So I don't really get it. But anyway, maybe I'll get a bill for another 100 euros at some point, but they only charged me 100 euros despite them confirming twice that it was 200 euros. So anyway, so the whole thing was cost me 900 euros. And after the guy in the tracksuits then taken my payment, there's a bit more waiting around. And while I'm waiting, there's a couple of women sat outside and they're discussing how they can't wait to have their lines filled in. Like one of them got like a wrinkly forehead and she didn't. It was only when she did that. And I got a wrinkly forehead if I do that. But anyway, she was like saying, I just can't wait to have it all filled in. I guess like, remove all facial expressions. You know, one of them had the trademark duck lips, which I just do not get. I'll be honest, I do not get why people do this themselves, but it just seems to be quite a popular look out here in Cyprus. If people can afford it, you generally see the people with the duck lips and they're driving either G-Wagons or Range Rovers and hey, each to their own, right? But I felt out of place. I'm there for a freaking operation, trying to get this thing sorted, happened to be a plastic surgeon. Anyway, I'm sitting there listening to these two people. I'm just going, okay, what do I do? Just where do you look, I don't know what they thought of me, what work they thought I was having. I don't know. I mean, maybe they just thought I was fugly and getting it all done, the facelift a lot. Anyway, so I get taken down to the theatre room, and you walk downstairs and had more documents to sign. And it was, again, it was sort of like, my name and everything else. I've just done all that. But anyway, sign it all again. And then I'm there, met by the surgeon, met by two nurses, or one of them that took me down from upstairs. And anyway, we go in to the operating theatre, and unlike when I had my MRI scan done, where I was offered a gown, this time I wasn't. I was just there in my normal clothes, kind of like what I'm wearing now. But anyway, I remember walking in and walked into the MRI. Well, I say I remember, like it was like a year ago, 2 days ago. I remember walking in, and honestly, this place, it was. I felt archaic. I'm not going to lie. It didn't feel like a modern hospital. It felt like something out of it felt kind of industrial. You walked in and on the right-hand side, there was this big stainless steel sink, like a cow trough, almost like you'd empty like human remains into it or something. I don't know, but it didn't feel like a sterile environment. I've got to be honest. It didn't feel nice. And then where I was, then so that this like cow trough thing was on the right hand side, and then the operating bed was on the left, and it got the light above it and everything else. But it felt like it was cluttered. It didn't feel clean. But anyway, laying on the bed, there is a like a sterile, like a padded mat. Like I don't know if anybody watching has got kids, but when people have kids and you put like those changing mats down when you're changing the kid's nappy, it's like a padded sterile mat. Well, they had like a huge one of them laying on the bed, and so he just says, "Yeah, help yourself, get on the bed." And so at this point, I've still got my bag on my back, and I've got a coat because it was looking like it was going to rain. And what do I do with all this stuff? And they're just, "Oh, I'm going to take it in." They took it off me, and they just like literally put it on a chair. And they said, "Yeah, just lay on the bed." And that was it, just in my clothes, lay on the bed. So I'm there, I've got my shoes and everything on, not in a gown. And then they covered me with like another padded blanket type thing. And yeah, I just remember I'm literally laying down and I kind of I'm feeling like having been in this room, it felt wrong. I can't explain it, but it felt wrong. And I'm thinking this is not going to go well. I'm looking up and it just feels old and like lots of negative self-talk came in. And I'm thinking it feels like a set from like a budget horror movie of some sort, you know? And then I started thinking, people lay here to have plastic surgery done, you know, and they're doing it by choice. Why would they do it by choice? You know, and I'm just thinking, wow, people are so insecure about their looks that they choose to lay where I'm laying and have stuff done to their face. And I was like, okay, anyway. So that was what was going through my head for some reason. But they start the operation and everybody's speaking Greek. So the doctor's speaking Greek. I mean, they kind of spoke to me in English, but then, you know, then they're speaking Greek to each other, which is fine. You know, we're in Cyprus. It's a predominantly Greek speaking country, which just so happens that everybody speaks English, but they were speaking Greek at this point. And during the operation, there was there was literally like very little communication about what was happening. So it was just like open wide, say, and does that, rams his fingers in my throat. And then he starts jabbing me with his freaking needle, which to be honest, didn't really feel, but he starts putting in the local anesthetic. Now, when I've been to the dentist here before, the dentists are amazing. You know, literally the dentist I use, he narrates everything. He's telling me what he's doing, he's telling you what he does before he does it. And he's just saying, you're just going to feel a little this, and then you do that, and you just feel the little thing that he's just said, and it's all fine. And you kind of like, you guided through it. This guy is just like jab, jab, jab. And occasionally he's like, "Can you feel that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can feel that." And he's like, "Oh, you shouldn't be able to feel that." And then he would just go, "More local." And then he gets another needle and sticks more local anesthetic in. You're like, okay, we're just going numb. But anyway, there's lots of needles. And you know, to be fair, they did check in on me from time to time, asking if I'm okay. And they did use bits of English like, "I can see the nerve and I can see the muscle." And I'm like, I don't want to hear that. You know, say that stuff in Greek. Yeah, I do not want to hear that. Say that bit in Greek. So anyway, they're saying all this stuff, and I just kind of thinking, bloody hell. And you think, well, what have they actually ended up doing? Because I thought they were going to take the tooth out, and they were messing about for ages before they got to the tooth. And it was only towards the end he says, "Right, now we're going to take your tooth out." And I'm like, we've been doing for the last 20 minutes. And anyway, what they've done, which is why my face is like this, is they kind of cut me on the inside of my cheek here, cut me down, and then that's when they folded the inside of my cheek back to go, have a look at the muscle, make sure there's no tumors there, make sure there's no like cancer or anything, which to be fair, they did reassure me, even though they called me 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, to say, "Hey, we're fairly certain it's not cancer." They did say definitely no tumors. Um, and so that's what they did. And then they took the tooth out and they stitched me back up, and they just stitched it all back up, and that was it. It was done. And I'm like, oh, so about 30 minutes in, 35 minutes in, I'm kind of laying there. I've had my tooth ripped out. I've had face pulled apart and stitched back up. And that was it. No kind of real conclusion. So the plastic surgeon, after the op, answered a few questions, and then that was it. Just gone. Like, didn't even see him go. He just literally just disappeared. And there was the nurse's assistant, the lady that was helping me again. She was reassuring throughout the op, but I mean, she was lovely. You know, she answered more questions. She talked me through the prescriptions. For some reason, I get this leaflet. Well, let's say leaflet. It's a printout. What to do after a wisdom tooth removal? I'm thinking, I don't care about the wisdom tooth. Everybody has wisdom tooth out. That's not a problem. What about all these stitches? Like, I can't feel my face. You're talking to me about a bloody wisdom tooth. I don't care about that. Anyway, got my nice little leaflet, so now I know what to do. Um, and anyway, she's talked me through it all, talked me all through the prescriptions, and she then offered. She says, "Oh, how are you getting home?" And I said, "Oh, I'm actually meeting my wife. I'm actually going to go and walk and meet her." And she's like, "Well, I can take you home if you want." I'm like, wow, that would just not happen like in the UK at all. Like you wouldn't get the medical staff offering to drive you home. And I said to her, I said, no, no, it's really good. Thank you. No, I'm going to go meet my wife. She's down at King's Mall at the time. We're going to meet some friends. We're going to go watch the Christmas lights being turned on in Paphos. They were being turned on Friday night. So I said, it's cool. I'm going to get fresh air. I'm going to have a walk. I thought it'd be good after the op, and I'll just go and I'll have a walk. So I did. I walked like 4 kilometers to get to King's Mall, picked up my prescriptions on the way. And as I'm getting closer to King's Mall, uh, the anaesthetic's wearing off. The adrenaline's wearing off. Oh, I was in a bad way. Friday night, I was in a bad way. I was in agony. I'm not going to lie. Um, my face just kept swelling, swelling, swelling. Luckily, like I said, it's gone down a bit now, but it kept swelling. And sleepless night Friday night. But yeah, anyway, so bottom line is I'm an idiot and I shouldn't have walked, but I did. So I did that. And anyway, so what happens now? Like this is done, the operation's done. And what happens now, Well, what they've said is I go back in another 2 weeks and they're going to check my stitches, they're going to check my swelling and stuff like that. So there's like an after service, which is okay, I guess. I don't know what they're going to check, but they're going to check, make sure it's all healthy. And then I have to go do another MRI scan in 3 months' time because they didn't find any tumors of the growths. They want to know what's actually changed because there was a little bit of pus that came out, but there wasn't like a solidified infection, which is what they were hoping to find. So anyway, I still don't know what's going to happen. I still have numbness all in my face, and I have numbness and swelling, and I've got numbness in my tongue and all of that. But that's all going to go, and I'm hoping that when it all goes, everything's fine. So my honest opinion of Cypriot hospital was having had my first proper operation in a Cypriot hospital. Well, first of all, it's faster than the UK, that's for sure. I mean, if I'd have done this in the UK, I would have been waiting months between each stage to get scans and everything else. So the fact that, the GESY part that I did, which is the health service here, was great. It was super fast. And I could have probably had all of this done on GESY, but they scared the crap out of me going, might be cancer. And I was like, crap. And the fact that it said urgent all over the MRI scan, I was like, well, shit, better get it done then. So I could have done it done probably faster by going private, but it was really fast through GESY anyway. GESY system is really good. And like I say, in the UK, I'd have had to wait months. And, overall though, what's my experience having been to this Iasis hospital? I'll be honest, not amazing. I mean, the whole experience, maybe it's just because it's a hospital. Maybe hospitals aren't amazing in general. And, I live by this ethos of if it ain't broke, then don't fix it. I don't go to the dentist unless I have to. I don't go to hospital unless I have to, because generally it's just not a nice experience. And so, yeah, maybe it's that. Maybe I'm being doing a disservice to them. But are they worse than the UK? I mean, no, not from what I've seen. But certainly, I didn't enjoy the experience. It wasn't a pleasant experience. I'm kind of thinking to myself, if this doesn't work and I've still got the numbness, then I'm just going to live with it and that'd be fine. I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to do more of this, so we'll see. But yeah, overall, the whole thing, not the best experience in the world. And if you're paying privately, it's not the cheapest thing in the world either. But, I guess time's going to tell whether or not it's going to be worth it. So anyway, that's me. That's the follow-up. That is the follow-up. That is literally from diagnosis to right way through to operation now, the Cypriot healthcare system. So be interested to know if you've had any healthcare out in Cyprus, if you've had any experience with the Cypriot hospitals, maybe the hospitals you've been to are better than the ones that I've been to. If so, tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your experiences. But otherwise, that's it from me now. I'm going to go and have a drink of water. I'm just going to say that. I'm going to have a drink of water. I'm going to go and end it there. So have a good night. Thanks for listening. And I will catch you all soon. Cheers. There's quite a lag on this, so I'm just going to give it a bit of time. I think that'd be enough time. Surely that's enough time. There was a lot of lag.